welcome to NFL Daily, where 4th and goal at the half-yard line is an automatic go for us forever. I am Gregg Rosenthal. I am here in my garage for a surprise podcast. It's not an emergency podcast. There's no emergency happening here, but there is some news. New York Giants have fired Brian Daboll on Monday morning, and we are joined by none other than NFL Network Grand Poobah insider Ian Rapoport to help us break down the news. Ian, were you surprised that it happened now?
I was not surprised, no. I would say, once the questions start, there's really only two ways to handle it, right? And I think everyone, you look on the field, you can hear all the stuff, but really the product is what it is on the field, right? And so there's been rumors about Brian Daboll and a potential firing for quite a while. And then you see how the players react. And it was another lead. It was another game that they had in hand on the road. And then it was another inexplicable collapse. Plus Jackson Dart got hurt. So I think this is the kind of thing that, for me was on my radar all morning, knowing that for sure it could be a possibility. It makes sense. And I think once look, no one wants to do this during the season, right? It doesn't help. It only makes the season just a lost season. Nobody wants to do it during the season. But once you know that you're going to fire him, just do it, right? I mean, timing's always bad. Everything's always bad. Just make it clean, break, and move on. I would say it was not a surprise. And unfortunately, because Brian Daboll is a really good guy, probably what was necessary.
He chose to kick a field goal. Like I mentioned, it was 4th and goal at the 1. They were up 7 in the fourth quarter. We talked about it on a recap show. It's just a sad way to go out. Unfortunately, their defense had been struggling overall, but they had a great game through 3 quarters. They get a penalty on that potential field goal. They hit the field goal and they decide not to take the penalty. Would have been from the half-yard line, and then they blow the lead, and a few days later it's gone. I did notice a beat writer, I think it was Pat Leonard, excuse me if I'm wrong, said, one of the things that could get Daboll fired before the bye week, let's say, because they have 3 tough games before their bye week, was getting Jackson Dart hurt. And I do wonder if the 4 concussion tests that he has done in his brief time as a starter and then being ruled out with a concussion in this game after running again and again and taking some big hits. Some of that is on Dart not protecting himself, but some of that is on Daboll. How do you think the Jackson Dart equation played into this? Because, one thing I think people said to make the case for Daboll is you don't want to take away Jackson Dart's, coach when he's good with quarterbacks and he's off to a good start in his career. How do you think that worked out when making this decision?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think Brian Daboll got Jackson Dart hurt. I think he got hurt because football is a violent game and people unfortunately sometimes get hurt. I mean, there's been plenty of really good coaches who have not been able to get quarterbacks to slide and stay out of harm's way. I don't know that that's Brian Daboll's fault. And I don't know that, whether or not Jackson Dart starts the next game, to me, that wouldn't change the trajectory of the Giants season. There's been so many games that have followed the same script that it's what could I have seen? What could I have seen that would make me say all right, well, now because he got Dart injured, therefore fire him. It's
fair.
No, look, the development of the quarterback is always the most important. And yes, Jackson Dart has looked very good in Brian Daboll's system. We are going to see what he looks like with Mike Kafka, because this is a little bit of a tryout. It's a challenge, but a little bit of a tryout. And I'm sure Kafka will get interviews. Interim coaches always get interviews. And, we'll kind of see what he looks like in the same system with a different head coach. I would also say that, as we look at this thing, you have, obviously the Titans and Giants is the only job that's open. There's a couple other possibilities. I think Miami, who team played a lot better this week, that's a possibility. There's some other possibilities, but this is a really good job. Jackson Dart is someone who, with the right coach and system and, infrastructure around him, has proven that he can be a guy. And so if you're, a young head coach, a retread head coach who wants another shot, really anyone, this would be a job you want because you don't have to search for a quarterback. You have a quarterback.
it's a great call in terms of Jackson Dart is such a great starting point. Like in that game yesterday in particular, although he's looked good overall, I was really impressed. And it's not just his running ability. And I do think you can get on Daboll a little bit for running like QB power a few times. It's like they're building their offense around him running the ball quite a bit. But he did more things throwing the ball in that game and has looked better than I would have ever expected. And to buttress your point, Ian, there's a great word, buttress.
Not a great
Got Jackson Dart, got a top 5 NFL left tackle in Andrew Thomas. You have Malik Neighbors coming off of an injury next year, but you have Malik Neighbors. And you have a defensive line where Brian Burns, Dexter Lawrence, and Abdul Carter are all signed through at least 2027. You even have Kayvon Thibodeau next year still too. For a renovation project, that's pretty good, especially because of Dart. Now, I will put to you, I have my own opinions on this, but I'm curious if you have a feeling of how the Giants want to operate. Do you think it's going to be a full rebuild with a new front office helping to choose a new head coach? Or do you think Joe Schoen, who was brought in at the same time as Brian Daboll, could potentially survive this or even is likely to survive this and still be running the team in 2026?
Well, there's been no changes other than Brian Daboll now. Historically, when you have a major move, it's either one or both. It's rarely. You do see it sometimes. We saw it with Jacksonville last year in what I would consider to be extenuating circumstances, but almost always the changes happen and then it's about the next. It's about moving on. It's about fixing and all that. So, I'd be surprised if that was the case. I'd be surprised if they made a change at general manager. They didn't come in as a package deal, but essentially they did come in together. I would say allowing a GM to make more than one coaching hire is what most organizations do. Like rarely you bring in a guy, you package them together, and then you say, all right, you're done. You don't get the chance to hire a head coach. So generally you do. I would also say, as a GM, like really what you want to do, it's not just about collecting talent, because I think that's important. That's not the job. It's building a team. And I would say at least what Joe Schoen has done is built enough talent to win. It has not been a cohesive team. So like they have not been, they have not won a lot of games, but the people I've spoken with, like that defense should be a lot better. They got a lot of talent on the defense. I know there was a lot of discussion about moving on from their defensive coordinator this past offseason. I know Brian Daboll didn't want to do it, and they ended up not doing it. Would they be better with a different DC? I think possibly. But based on the people I've spoken with, they believe there is more than enough talent on that roster to win. Certainly more than enough talent to be 2-8.
It's really interesting having gotten a peek into the Giants front office with that Hard Knocks. And I don't think, personally, Joe Schoen came off incredible in that, not just in terms of the decisions, letting Xavier McKinney and Saquon Barkley, but just you weren't watching that and feel like you were seeing, 1960s Red Auerbach or anything like that. And since January,
I would say, let me just interrupt you. I would just say those conversations, like that feel was pretty normal. Like that's what it sounds like. Yes.
I heard from some people in the league that were kind of like, these are the conversations. We're glad we're competing against these guys.
Yeah, I didn't get that, and I talked to a lot of GMs.
You talked to a lot more than me. Let's be real.
So I didn't get that. Now the decisions, like Saquon went on to be an MVP candidate. Would he have been a candidate with the Giants? Like, I don't think so. The offensive line's a lot worse. Like they spent the money elsewhere. Like there are different arguments to be made, but I don't think that like the Hard Knocks maybe looked bad to the public because you let Saquon go and then he plays so great, but I don't get the sense that really altered Joe Schoen's actual job status.
I hear that. To me, sometimes it was more about just like when they were talking about Brian Burns and, they pop in there like, hey, he had a lot, they're like counting up the quarterback hits and stuff. And just like, isn't there something more there? Here, I'll just give you some numbers though.
Okay.
You mentioned the 4 double-digit losses on the road this year, which is crazy. And yeah, Daboll's Giants have
crazy, by the way. Crazy.
It's just crazy. Really bad luck too, but also just crazy. 29th in scoring since he arrived. Since the day they went to Philadelphia, Ian, for the divisional round of the playoffs in January of 2023, not that long ago, the Giants have gone 11-34. Since they hired Brian Daboll and Joe Schoen, they have the fourth worst record in football. Since they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots, they have won the third least amount of games. So Giants are 30th. Browns and Jets are 2 wins behind. And if you break it down, if you start like since they fired Coughlin, second worst, since McAdoo, fourth worst, since Shermer, second worst, since Judge, fourth worst, like they have consistently been a bottom 5 franchise, which is crazy to say.
Has felt like that.
I guess so, but it's just like the Giants ownership has been getting a lot of, I think, benefit of the doubt for a long time for being good ownership because of what happened, before the last 12 years. But the reality is they have not made good decisions. And personally, I do think it's cleaner when you have a full teardown and the GM and the coach are starting at the same time. But we'll see. If you tend to think that they won't do that.
Yeah, I don't. And I also am not sure that's true. And the reason why I would say that is because it's a hard job. And at the beginning, a lot of people are not good at it. It's really hard. Like, I'll give you another example. The Commanders, right? Great offseason last year. Everything that Adam Peters did worked, right? And they had the second pick of quarterback. Now, both of them, Caleb Williams and Jane Daniels are both looking good now, but they had the second pick of quarterback, and every veteran that Adam Peters brought in worked, and they went deep into the playoffs. This year, everything has been bad. Every move, it seems like veterans are looking slower. Some of the high price additions they made have not worked. Like, now, does that mean Adam Peters is bad at his job? No, it's like these are hard jobs. These are huge decisions, and people make mistakes. And I think the only way to really get better, unless you just have a Ferrari that you just get behind the wheel of and you're like ready to roll, which there's a couple of those. They're really hard. And my sense is, considering that he's built a team with a lot of talent, and considering he has the experience of making mistakes over the last 3 years, it feels like they will be better off with Joe Schoen as GM than someone else who does not have this experience, because historically there's almost no retread GMs. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I think, look, if you look at some of the drafts there with them, they've had pretty big swings and misses too. They had Evan Neal was their first draft pick there. They had Deonte Banks, which is a pretty big miss. Last year's class, which looked really good last year, looks solid, but Tyler Nubin, Drew, who is it in the back end? Drew Phillips. They've been okay. Like, not good, but not
Neighbors. Look, injuries happen, but Neighbors doesn't get injured. That's looking like a win. So it's like not everyone can be like the Browns draft class. They're like all going to be good this year. Like that's but like they can't all be like that. But anyway, my general argument, not just as it pertains to Joe Schoen, is unless it's like two systems clashing, where the guy's a total jerk and a head coach refuses to work with him, which is not the case here. I think they'll be better off having a GM who's been through it, who's put enough talent on the field, and will work with the next head coach that he will help hire. That is my general thought.
Mike Kafka, and yeah, you mentioned it. I should have, but you're the real newsman. I should have mentioned it right off the top. Mike Kafka is the interim head coach. They did not fire Shane Bowen, who's their defensive coordinator. And Kafka's gotten a lot of head coaching interviews over the last 3 or 4 years. He had his time in Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes. It could be interesting to see what he does, because the number one thing I would think they're looking for out of a head coach is who can maximize Jackson Dart. And that's why I do compare it a little bit to the Drake May situation a year ago. I think Drake May physically was more obviously going to be a dude. That's my own personal bias. I thought that before the Patriots took him. But Jackson Dart has played to a level where he looks like a dude as well. So everything should be about maximizing Jackson Dart. We'll wrap at least on the Giants, just with, do you think if he has a realistic chance to maybe be the dude, Mike Kafka?
Yeah, I kind of do. And it's been interesting because, like, on one hand, he's Brian Daboll's guy. Daboll hired him. but he's not only Brian Daboll's guy. He's been in a lot of different places. He is a good enough leader. He has, sort of done it. Like the league has done a good job of putting guys in position to lead. Like he's done the Senior Bowl, and like coached to the Senior Bowl. Like, and from what I was told, got pretty good reviews doing it. So like, I think he does have a chance. Now it'd be a surprise because it almost never happens, but like, he's well thought of as a offensive coordinator. He has had head coach interviews. I think in particular in Seattle, he did really well. Didn't get it, but did well. So I do think he has a chance, and probably should.
Before I let you go, since you're here, it's been a while, by the way. If you go back to like the early NFL Daily days, I mean, Rap Sheet was on there all the time, but now he's on NFL Network. He's always been on NFL Network. He's on Pat McAfee right now.
I always come on when I'm asked.
You really do. You're the man. You broke the news that, or at least you were the first one I saw, that Joe Burrow is back at practice this week. Is there anything to? I mean, it's November 10th. They started his activation. That even if he joins the team and plays at the end of that activation, which I would think is possible, that's earlier than I expected. What can you tell us about Joe Burrow before you go off into wherever the insiders hide during the day?
Yeah, pretty cool news, I have to say, for the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm not there, and they're about to go on the practice field in a couple minutes as we're taping this now. But, you talk about a dude, like that guy's a dude. And for him to be out on the practice field, like that is going to give them the kind of bounce that you can't manufacture. They have been, they've won some games. They are not out of it. They are, I think, 3-6, right? Isn't that the record? 3-6.
3-6. Yes, they're in Pittsburgh this week.
If they can, come out and play well enough, maybe win a game or two. God forbid they go 2-1 over the next 3 games. Like Joe Burrow could be back with a chance to help this team get to the playoffs. Like it's crazy, but it's not that crazy. And like, I would also say this. 3-6, like it's uphill battle, but you got a chance. I think he would probably be back almost anyway. Like I don't know that it was ever a decision. I think it was like, as soon as I can come back, I'm coming back, and that is pretty cool.
Yeah, by all accounts, in terms of how they run the offense, maybe even how they're deciding to sign people. I mean, he's kind of the boss, and he should be. I mean, he's the most important person in the organization, and if he wants to play, they're not going to stop. You don't think there's any chance of like him playing Sunday, do you? It's
not Sunday.
No.
I have to look at the schedule.
It's the Patriots the week after. The problem is, and it makes
Sunday?
Yeah, they're all Sundays coming up, and then a Thursday. On Thanksgiving. That would be interesting against the Ravens. Thanksgiving night.
I mean, that's how many days? 18 days from now?
Yes.
Possible.
That's crazy. And
possible.
It kind of breaks my heart, though, that they blew the Jets game and the Bears game because Flacco played so well. And if they had just won one of those two, hell, if they had won both of those, they'd be 5-4. And Joe Burrow coming back in a few weeks, like they could afford to lose because their schedule gets tougher now. And it really, it bums me out that they could be 3-8.
Yeah, but we'll see because, he comes back again. Like, let's say they go 2-1. So let's say they're 5-7.
Sure. 5-6 in that scenario. Yeah, you got a chance, but you're also playing the Steelers, the Patriots, the Ravens, the Bills, the Ravens in the next 5 weeks. So they kind of just got through the easy part of their schedule, unfortunately.
No, you're right.
Now they got some tough ones, but they could take out Pittsburgh. Appreciate you making the time on a busy day, Ian. You're more than just an insider. You're a man. You're a husband. You're a father. And you're a friend. We've known each other a long time now.
Yeah, we've known each other a long time.
We've been through a lot. Appreciate you. And we will be back tonight, by the way. This is a surprise episode, so we will be back. Join us, YouTube, live after Eagles and Packers. Nick Shook. We will see you then.